best. Moreno Argentin, 4 times a winner of the Liège-Bastogne-Liège, 1985 through to 87, and indeed in 19. Delgado, Miguel Indurain, Marino Lajareta, 3 top Spanish riders. Why are the climbers here? Because this race in Belgium is full of hills. There are 10 climbs, and on the 10 climbs there are 2 new ones, one of them taking the riders over the highest point in Belgium. They say it really is very, very hard indeed. Coming towards the end of the race, there are 2 vicious little brutes called the Côte de la Redoute and the Côte des Forges, and the strong men who come to this point at the head of the pack can expect to lead out towards the finish down here in Liège. The riders themselves always want to do well in this classic because the man who wins it is usually one of the best riders in the world. Eddy Merckx, for example, has won this race on 5 previous occasions. That's why he's one of the great legends of world cycling. We can expect, too, another good performance from the Motorola team after Steve Bauer's fighting performance in Paris-Roubaix, where he finished 4th. Maybe he'll be up in the action too, or maybe he'll have to give his place to Phil Anderson, the Australian, who has ridden well in this classic before. Other riders are here too, like Greg LeMond of the United States, who's proved to the world he can win the Tour de France and the World Championship, but everybody still waits for him to win a classic race. This race could be the one. 26 of the world's finest cyclists line up for the start of Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Among them, Stephen Roche, who's had a 2nd and a 3rd in this event, still awaits the win, and this year his form is good. Claude Coquillon, a professional who retires at the end of a 13-year career, has never won this race virtually in his own back garden. Claudio Chiappucci, this year winner of Milan-San Remo, last year's 2nd in the Tour de France. On a cold and chilly day, although the sun is out at the moment, snow is forecast as the field rolls away. The race distance 267 kilometres, and we can now join the action out on the course. So the race story so far: Thierry Bourguignon from the Toshiba team broke clear this morning at Houffalize with 62 kilometres of the race covered. So Thierry Bourguignon anticipating a long breakaway today, but he's been picked up now. We're 79 kilometres from the finish, and we are in the town of Stavelot. And these graphics indicating the steepness of the next hill to come up. This is the Côte de Haute-Levée. Steepest gradient of 12% coming right at the start of the climb, a very narrow approach indeed. Well, Bourguignon had a lead of 7 minutes at one stage today, but he was picked up. His legs just cracked up in the end. The small group got to him first, but I must say that the main field very tenacious today. They've also been racing through some quite heavy sleet and some very cold rain. This is Benny van Brabant here from the SEFP team. It's a local professional team, and Van Brabant riding very strongly here at the front. This is the climb of the Côte de Haute-Levée. 193 kilometres covered when they go over the top of this climb. It's still the best part of an hour and 3/4 of racing to come. Well, Van Brabant is trying to keep the pace up here, but the whole field has come up alongside him. And that, on the far left, looks like Claudio Coquillon, who's trying to move to the front. He's been playing an active role, but so far, all of the heads of state in this race have been wandering around the big bunch together. And they're quite content at this stage to let Van Brabant set the pace. No one in the lead now. Everybody has been swept up. There's been a few attacks since the capture of Thierry Bourguignon, among them Maurizio Fondriest, Derek de Wolf, and the champion of the Soviet Union, Dmitry Konyshev. They've all been brought back, and Coquillon's settling in now. After his great 2nd place in Flèche Wallonne the other day, the Belgians here have come out in force to hope that they will cheer home their national champion. This is the one race that Coquillon has tried but never won. I think his best chance, quite frankly, was when he was away with Stephen Roche back in 1987. And that was the last year that Moreno Argentin won this race. And Stephen Roche and Claudio Coquillon spent so much time towards the end arguing with each other as to who was going to set the pace that Argentin came from absolutely nowhere. and beat them both to the line. And look at this strong attack now on the haute levée by Coquillon. He's absolutely opening a gap here. This is exactly what the crowd were hoping to see, and Coquillon has faced some pressure this week. He's been at the headlines of every national paper here in Belgium, and they've all been saying, Claudie will not let us down. We rely on you, Claudie. They call him Crick the Lion. He turned professional back in 1979, and at that stage, I must say, he looked like a future winner of the Tour de France. And that's another thing. When he does retire this year, that'll be one of his sad memories, the fact he's never won a stage in the Tour. But look at this, Moreno Argentin has pedalled up alongside him, and didn't he make it look easy? Argentin winning the Flèche Wallonne for the second time earlier in the week. He's now searching for a fourth victory here in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. World champion in the United States in Colorado Springs back in 1986, Argentin. And Coquillon looks across, doesn't seem too concerned, almost as if he expected to see the Italian alongside him. And now the Italian is continuing what Coquillon has started here as we head up towards the top of the haute levée. The Ardennes. And on the back of the field here, Eric Van Lancker, last year's winner, has done a good ride to join this league group, which was started by Claude Coquillon and Moreno Argentin. And this group has now developed into quite a breakaway. 10 riders here. Here's a list of them. Apart from Van Lancker, you've got Raul Alcala. There he is. And Johan Bruneel from the Lotto team, who's settling in now. We're expecting a lot from him this season, especially in the Tour de France. Inaki Gaston from the class team from Spain. Miguel Indurain, he's been sick, but he's put this race down as one of the races he wants to do well in this year. Well, he's made a good start now, hasn't he? And Marino Lajarreta, Spanish leader of the Once team. There's the rider who started it all, champion of Belgium, Claude Coquillon. And this now is the big selection, I think, in this year's Liège-Bastogne-Liège. There is a group chasing behind, which includes Phil Anderson and Charlie Motte, and they're running at around 45 seconds to a minute back. Oh, well, there we are. There's confirmation. 1 minute and 5 seconds to the Anderson group. Setting the pace at the front now, Rolf Sorensen, the leader in the World Cup competition. This is round number 4 this year in the competition. Sorensen actually finished Paris-Roubaix last week, which was something he was aiming to do. He was outside the World Cup points, but it was his 4th attempt at that race, and he hadn't finished the previous 3 rides. 54 kilometres to go from the finish. We're entering Stoumont here. And this breakaway has come together after the climb of the haute levée. And the climbers beginning to enjoy themselves. Lajarreta, Alcala, there's Sorensen taking a break at the back. What a great start to the season that man is having. The Danish rider, having finished 2nd in Milan-San Remo, 3rd in the Tour de Flanders, and then didn't score in Paris-Roubaix last week, but now he's in the big breakaway here in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Little caps in the bottom there indicating there are still 4 of the 10 climbs to come. There's Inaki Gaston dropping back a little bit, but all of these riders still content to work together. From what I can see, none of them are acting as a passenger here. They're all going through, doing their work at the front, swapping around the pace. And news that Konishev, the champion of the Soviet Union, is still trying to catch up with this league group. Well, it won't be too long now before we head down to the next climb on the itinerary, which will be the Côte de l'Ours. Roach wearing number 51, perhaps the most famous number in professional cycling. It's the number that's been worn by more winners of the Tour de France than any other number. And Marino Lajarreta thinking of a good crack at the Tour of Spain this year, when he hopes once more to go for the big triple, the Tour of Spain, the Tour of Italy and the Tour de France. Rides for the Spanish Once team, which, by the way, is a national institution for the blind in Spain, and it's the 7th biggest corporation in that country. And by the way, The masseur, too, on the Once team, is also blind. Johan Bruneel, the rider who rode so well in the Tour de France last year, and is developing, despite his size, into a very, very good mountain climber. Just 5 kilometers to go now before we start the climb of the Lorsa. And that will take us up to around 225 kilometers once we top over. And this is Inaki Gaston here taking his shoe covers off, so the pace is certainly hotting up. It hasn't been a great day for weather, by the way, so far. The riders, in fact, have passed through, especially down by Bastogne. They've passed through some quite heavy snow flurries. It's been very, very cold indeed. Well, we have to say we're sorry for the microwave breakup, but again, it's due to the links to the helicopter from the motorbikes, but I'm sure you'll agree the action is worth it. They crossed over the Côte de Haussière, but although it was said to be the toughest climb in Belgium, there was no action on it at all because Thierry Bourguignon had control there, leading by the best part of 7 minutes. He's back in the field now. It seems as though the field had a great deal of respect for one another today. Heading on to the Lorsa now. And there is the full group that we're looking down upon. The main bunch, or what's left of the main bunch, is racing at around 1 minute back. Early spring in the Ardennes. The weather down in this section of Belgium is always beautiful, but you know the weather changes so quickly here in the hills. Cloud formation always affected by the dense forest areas. It is so different from the Flanders section of Belgium. And still that breakaway at 65 seconds. So although our cameras aren't dropping back to show you this chase at the moment, quite clearly it is a good one, because they're not slowing down at all in the chase. And I must say that you've got to look to this group at the front too, who don't seem to be panicking either. They're just keeping on the pressure. They know that this race will finally be decided in the last few climbs to come. Now heading up towards the village of Tognon, 51 kilometers covered to go rather. And isn't it funny in big races how the previous year's winner always seems to put in a very special effort? And that's what Van Lanker's had to do here today. He's on the far side of our picture there, riding behind Stephen Roach. Eric Van Lanker carrying the colours today of Panasonic. He had a great start to the season last year with Eddie Plankett winning the winning the Paris-Roubaix rather, in that millimetre finish from Steve Bauer, and then Van Lanker going on to win this race 1 year ago, and now he's in what appears to me to be the decision again. There's Johan Bruneel, turned professional back in 1987, didn't win a race then, but since then he's had 12 victories as a professional, and last year finished 17th in the Tour de France. Well, Claude Coquillon has made no secret about his desires to win this race, so he set himself up really as the man to knock down. While Paris-Roubaix was on television last week, Claude Coquillon was out for 5 hours on his bike training up by his home. He came back in, he watched the finish of Paris-Roubaix on television, and then he went back out behind the motorbike to continue his training. His preparation has been excellent for these two classics here in Belgium, at what they used to call, in fact, the Ardennes weekend, because they used to be on Saturday and Sunday, Flèche Wallonne and Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Now they're splitting them apart. It's a great shame that the Flèche Wallonne is not part of the World Cup series. It's suffering from the fact it's in Belgium and it's too close to this classic race. But it is equally a noted race, and Crick, who's won that one before, finished second in it the other day, and now is hoping to go one better here. Everybody continuing to work well together. The climb still to come, the Côte de la Redoute. And we can look at the map here, you see the flashing going on at the top of our picture. That's where we are at the moment, at the Lorsa. We're now leaving the heart of the Ardennes around Trois Ponts. It's a magnificent area. If anybody wants to come over here and go just cycle touring, it's beautiful. This is the climb here, 12% gradient, you see, an average of 5.6%. Takes them up to a height of 415 metres. Van Lanker keeping his knees warm, I note, from the cold weather today. No sign of any passengers at all in this group. Lotto have the strength with 2 riders here like Ariosto. That might prove decisive as this race comes to an end. They've got the opportunity to counter-attack. Miguel Indurain, who starts the season hampered a little bit by illness, and Stephen Roach looking good. And the same too could be said of Eric Van Lanker, Raul Alcala. The PDM team not had a great deal of success at all this year yet, and it's strange, but I feel they're missing Sean Kelly, out since Paris-Nice because of that broken collarbone, the second year in succession where he's broken his collarbone very early on. Last year it was in the Tour of Flanders, a silly fall on a sharp corner, and this year it was a crash in Paris-Nice. Now let's have a little bit look further down. This is the chase group here. Not surprisingly, it's the RMO riders who are having to do a lot of the work. This is Eric Carretou, former champion. We've got the Brazilian rider here too, trying to do a little bit of work. Mauro Ribeiro on the RMO team. And this is Dufault, a new professional from Switzerland. Well, they're still in with a chance, but they're going to have to close this down very, very quickly. This is the group, in fact, which Phil Anderson is in, but I can't see Phil at a glance here. There's still quite a few powerful riders up in this group. Michel Dernisse, I can see, back down in the centre there for the Wyman colours. But the RMO are the big losers at the minute. They haven't got a man in that breakaway, and it's all down to them to chase it down. Some help from Helvetia La Suisse, because they're in the same boat. But the La Suisse team not quite as strong as RMO, and that there are a lot of teammates on the front too who want to keep this race nice and steady. Edwig van Hooijdonk to the right, he's missed the break as well. And number 44 pedalling along here is Rolf Goltz. Well, he's happy to keep it at this pace because his 2 men are right up there. Too many wanted. There's the gap. It's 1 minute to the group we're looking at the moment, 1 minute 35 back to the rest of the field. Time running out as we head down out of the valleys. We'll be on our way towards Remouchon very shortly. Very nice cafe on the corner there if you ever fancy a cup of tea when you're pedalling around the Ardennes. I don't suppose the riders will be stopping though. And a short stretch of cobblestones which will take them up onto the climb of La Redoute. Rolf Goltz, also a man that seems to be refining his form. Change of teams for him. Rode with the Buckler team last year, got off to a good start with them too when he finished second in Milan San Remo, but things have changed after that. He didn't really do well all season, and he fell out with team manager Jan Ross, who left him out of the Tour de France. Now Rolf has joined the Italian team. Ariosto, there he is. And little Charlie Motte trying to keep in touch. Edwig van Hooijdonk wearing the same lucky long trousers which won him the Tour de Flanders the other week, although they weren't quite so lucky in Paris-Roubaix, but he rode well there too. And there's Anderson. So Phil Anderson hoping that this group will bring back that leading group, but there are so many star riders up there, you know. Stephen Hodge riding on the far side, the Australian. That is really a big mistake by this group. The strong men went clear using their strength. There's Maurizio Fondriest. He was extremely active early on. In fact, he countered the original breakaway by Thierry Bourguignon, and he brought Bourguignon to heel, but then fell back to the group and might well have been recovering, in fact, when Claudio Quillion started applying the pressure. Claudio Chiappucci too, finding his ears a bit cold by the look of it. But Chiappucci now, people were saying he was a lucky man last year in the Tour de France and wasn't an absolute worthy of that second place. But I feel he was. He rode an excellent race. He proved he wasn't going to give up that yellow jersey easily. Greg LeMond really had to race him for it towards the end, although in the end it became something of a formality. But this year, the win in Milan-San Remo, well, that's confirmed him now as a top cyclist. He also won, by the way, his first ever stage race this year, which sounds strange, doesn't it, when you've just finished second in the Tour de France? He's never actually won a stage race until this season. So his season going well, and they're slowly pulling them back to 38 seconds now. A lot of work being done here. This is Yvon Madio, brother of Marc, who last week won Paris-Roubaix. Sweeping along the road. Let's see what's going on a bit further down. Let's see where the leaders are. Still a lot of daylight between the two bunches. The oldest classic, and the roads are a lot nicer than they must have been in 1894 when Leon Hua was the winner from Belgium. That race then was 223 kilometres long, but we've come on a bit further since then now. This one is 267. And shouts there for Alcala. They spotted him in the breakaway. Inaki Gaston, former teammate of Sean Kelly. And the grand old man, his hair's as grey as mine is. Marino Laggiaretta. He rides a bike a bit better. Brunel and Indurain. What a lovely style Miguel Indurain has. Remember him on the mountains in the Pyrenees last year when he took on Greg LeMond for that finish at Luzardiden, and he sprinted away to the stage victory. Always rides well in the Pyrenees, Indurain. Head to head, Italy and Belgium, and the two riders who fought out Flèche Wallonne. Walker Killion nearest the camera. Moreno Argentin. Argentin, by the way, spent his winter in South Africa, and he gave the mechanic in the bicycle shop quite a shock in Cape Town when he rolled in with a pair of wheels and said would he true them, and he said, but excuse me, aren't you Moreno Argentin? He says, yes, I'm on holiday with my wife. And when the mechanic told the story to the cyclists who came in the next day, nobody would believe him that Argentin was actually there. They found him though, and they went training with him. But I must say that the professional riders have been saying all this spring that it's only a matter of time before Argentin wins a big race. He's absolutely flying, they keep saying, and he's proved that to us already because he won Flèche Wallonne so easily on that breakaway, lasting some 70 kilometres. Well, we're almost at the top of the Lorsa. We're back here with the Van Hooijdonk group now, which is still making progress. There's Derek de Wolf, warning of somebody on the inside, and the pace being set all of the time here by Yvon Madio, trying desperately to get Charlie Motte back into the action. Goltz not doing anything to help, he's just sitting there antagonising as best he can, hoping that nobody else wants to take up the pace. What a lonely race Liège-Bastogne-Liège is. Nobody ever gets the chance to say a few words to one another. You're no sooner over one of these hills. It's coming down, 29 seconds and 1:30 back to the main field. You're no sooner over one hill, you have a short descent, and you're on to the next one. The only consolation is one or two of the real steep ones over the years have been taken out because they're on roads too narrow now for modern-day cycling. Because not only do you have to think of the increased field size, 200 starters allowed in races of this quality these days, but there's also the following cars who demand the right to get to their riders, and it's absolutely impossible on some of the roads of yesteryear. The first Liège-Bastogne-Liège, by the way, didn't start in Liège at all. It started in Spa, where the Flèche Wallonne starts from these days. It was Spa-Bastogne-Spa. But it seems to have found now a permanent home at Liège. It's been to Liège-Bastogne-Verviers as well in the past. Bit of tree felling going on here. So we're going back up to this lead group. And there's a counter-attack coming from the field. They're feeling that they might well be in touch with the leaders now. Goltz is still hanging on in there in third place, but it's Charlie Motte who's got to the front and wants to try and finish this off and contact the leaders. Dirk de Wolf sitting behind him, then Rolf Goltz. And that's Sammy Morels in fourth place, the other Lotto rider. Sammy Morell's had a couple of wins this year already, and a lot happier start to the season than last year. There he is. He was riding in the Tour of the Americas last year, crashed badly and broke his leg, and that delayed his continuance of the season. Van Hooijdonk is here as well, anxious to also try and bridge this gap. Buckler could do with a man up front. At least the pressure's off a little bit, because Jan Roos was demanding a classic win for the team this year, and he finally got it with the Tour de Flanders win by Van Hooijdonk. And there's the Buckler team bus there. I bet you Van Hooijdonk would like to be inside with the heater on right now too. 24 seconds, it's coming closer. Stephen Hodge, another Australian who settled into the big time. It's only a matter of time now before Stephen Hodge gets a real big victory. He's a very talented rider. And number 18 sitting in the back here is Gerard Rouvy, just off our camera at the moment. New team for Gerard this year, coming over from the French teams, joining Helvetia La Suisse alongside Paul Cockley. And number 105 here is Laurent Jalabert. We just missed him, but Laurent Jalabert, there he is. He is also, well, everybody seems to agree, he is the best of the new crop of French riders. He can sprint and he can stay. In other words, he can attack on the flat. Let's go back up and have a look at the leading group. Still working away. It's looking a bit as though they might get picked up now, though. Van Lanker is doing a fair share of the work. Coquillon is never far away from the front. Raoul Alcala going through. Lacherette. And Rolf Sorensen. This is the break that the Ariosto boys wanted. They've got both of their riders in it. Lotto have got 2 riders in, so there's 2 big teams. They will not be doing anything behind in that chase group. And it's a breakaway that came away by the use of sheer force, because once Coquillon had attacked, it was only those who spotted it, could grit their teeth and get across quickly, have made it so far. Because it gained a minute very rapidly indeed. They haven't panicked, but having said that, now we've got a split forming here. We're heading down towards Remouchon. And there's a little split formed. Laduretta having to accelerate to get on the back of the line. Brunel slipping it up a gear now as the pace goes up to over 60 kilometres an hour. And our motorcyclist choosing the wrong line here. The rider's coming right over on him. So we may not get to know. And the gap is opening a little bit, look. 35 seconds now. So they've allowed it to come almost up to them, and somebody has started an attack at the front. For much of the way, this course is really a figure of 8, dropping right down to Houffalize, where it goes round in the circle and back into Houffalize, and then it goes off to Stavelot and Francorchamps, and then comes over the Lorsa, where we've just seen. And we're now heading back up more or less in a straight direction to Liège. And that breakaway is not as happy as it was. There's a lot of riders now trying to get clear, are anxious to break it up. You may have felt it was just a little bit too big. 37 kilometres to go. We're located at Arzay. But what it has managed to do, whoever put that attack in, has knocked up about 10 seconds in the game. And that might well serve to demoralise the chase behind. Three climbs still to come, so the next one will definitely be the Côte de la Redoute, then we'll go on to the Côte d'Ornay, and finally the Côte des Forges. And then it's all downhill to Liège. And this group is still not getting clear of that chase group, although the chase group behind is thinning out a little bit. Phil Anderson is still there. And there is the information, the next climb to come, the climb of La Redoute. It starts, in fact, as we just snick into the edge of the town of Remouchon. It's a lovely little town. It nestles in the mountains, has an enormous viaduct that crosses it, carrying the main autoroute into the Ardennes and out to Liège. The town itself still largely untouched. Miguel Indurain there, turned professional back in 1985 after he won the Amateur National Championship of Spain a couple of years before that. let's have a look back at the group. There's Charlie Motte, and he must be beginning now to be feeling a little bit frustrated because they're not getting any closer. We're back into Remouchon here, and that, to me, looks like Sorensen has gone clear of the lead group. It's a white jersey. It must be the one worn by the World Cup leader, Rolf Sorensen. So Sorensen has decided he wants to get a good look at Laradoute before anybody else, because there's Indurain looking across and wants some help. There's a reaction coming from the breakaway. Well, this is a perfect tactic now, because he's giving Moreno Argentin the chance to follow behind, and the others are bound to chase him. And that is going to soften them up for the climb of Laradoute. It's a brute of a climb. There's a massive crowd on there, by the way. They say that the motor car is actually stopping on the autoroute to look across, which obviously is a dangerous practice, but it's not uncommon in Belgium when there's a big classic race going close by. And there's Sorensen. He's sat up and he's watching who did all the work to get him, and it was Claude Quillion who caught him up. He's certainly feeling frisky this season, Rolf Sorensen. General regroupment then of the main field here. Well, the leading group anyway. So Rolf's father Jens waiting at the finishing line. He rode in the Olympic Games in 1960, by the way, Jens. And as I say, he's on crutches at the finish, waiting to see the arrival of his son. There he is. And Sorensen's ambition, it's always been his ambition, is to be the world's #1 rider. Well, this year he's certainly taken a giant stride forward, and there was a hint of it coming last year too, because he won Paris Tours last year and the Sicilian Week. These counter-attacks are taking effect. 35 kilometers to go. Hawaii, which is the big town, before we race along the valley, just a couple of kilometers then to Remouchon, and then we're on to Laradoute. It won't hold any fears for men like Eric van Lancker there and Marina Lajaretta. They are climbers. Virtually every rider who has ambition in this race today has been out on the course this week, checking out the roads. The two new climbs didn't make a great deal of difference to the race, because everybody's afraid of the end of this stage, and that is the last couple of mountains towards the finish. And so the two new climbs, quite frankly, are just a little bit too far away for them to concern themselves with them. Just settling in, keeping the tempo going. After that little flurry of activity there, Sorensen seems to have controlled himself now. He's sitting in the group. And there's Inaki Gaston. Spanish riders are doing well in this breakaway, aren't they? That's where we are, and that's where we're going, up towards the A's. Redoute, Ornay, Forges. 3 climbs left still to come. We're now on our way out of Hawaii, and we're on that road which takes us now down to Remouchon. And the breakaway group has fallen back a little bit. 55 seconds is what it is, so they're just about into the town centre of Hawaii at the moment. We'll be making a left turn very shortly and bouncing over a stretch of cobblestones. Yesterday, which was a Saturday, there was a local town race here in Remouchon, and the start and finish line was on the cobblestones. Well, at least the riders here are only going to have to ride across them before they go around the back streets and climb Laradoute. It's a very narrow approach to Laradoute, but there's no other way to get onto it. So that's the way you've got to go. Quillion knows these roads so well. He's one of the few Walloons to become a top cyclist. He's lived and trained in the area for most of his life, although he lives now over by the wall of Gerardsbergen. Sorry about the little bit of picture breakup. It's all to do with our technical link up to the helicopters and the motorbikes, which then put the signals down on the finishing line, so we can all see the pictures, and occasionally buildings or bridges, and in that case it was that bridge over the road, breaks the link for us. Well, to look at these riders' faces, they all seem to be quite happy. They're certainly giving nothing away. Claude Coquillon there, riding this race for the last time. He must feel quite sad about that. But he has been a great cyclist. He's also a very nice person to know. He's a good friend of Sean Kelly's. There was a rumour once that they would ride on the same team, but it's never worked out. And he never seems to have a shave the day he rides. Some of the riders are superstitious about that. He always has this sort of grey shadow. Makes him look more aggressive. That must be it. But he had a lovely season last year, Claude Coquillon. Riding one of his best Tours de France. For some years, anyway. Winning the National Championship of Belgium and finishing 9th in the Tour. And this year, he's made absolutely certain he's got the form to go out on a high note. And Stephen Roach deciding it's time to take off the old arm warmers. Well, Roach was out here on the course on Friday with his teammate Laurent Pillon. They both went over La Redoute together. Laurent Pillon, new professional, which Stephen has taken with him on the Belgian Tonton Tapis team this year. There's the World Cup situation as we come to this race. Rolf Sorensen with 42 points. Marc Madio, especially after his victory in Paris-Roubaix last week, in 2nd place. Edwin van Hooijdonk, he won the Tour of Flanders, his 3rd. Carlo Boemens of Belgium riding very, very well this year in 4th place. And Franco Ballerini is up into 5th place. That's the World Cup standings. The first 20 riders on the stage today will receive points towards that World Cup situation. And Sorensen is doing himself the world of good right now because he's in this winning breakaway. Well, if it is a winning breakaway, he's certainly in the leading breakaway anyway. And it looks to me as though Sorensen is going again at the front here, or is that still Roach out front? But whoever it is has gone clear. As we come into Remouchon. Well, if the riders turn right instead of left, they'll go back to a town they passed through a couple of hours ago called Trois Ponts. I guess they'll go left this time and head back now towards Liège via probably the most feared climb of them all, the La Redoute. And this, in fact, is Rolf Sorensen, who's gone clear here. This is the 2nd time that Rolf has attacked. As we will now head down towards the left turn and a short stretch of cobblestones to take us up towards the climb. So Sorensen clearly deciding that it's his job now to soften this breakaway up in favour of Moreno Argentin, his team leader. This is the stretch of road that will take us down to the cobbles. In fact, we're on them already. Two parked cars, surprisingly, being allowed to stay on the route of Liège-Bastogne-Liège today. It's not usual to see that. But a nice little crowd here. This is a very nice holiday village in the height of summer. At this time of the year, everybody comes to witness the passing of Liège-Bastogne-Liège, the gateway now to the last 3 climbs, and always the most crucial. Sorensen here has a lead of about 15 seconds. There is the Brute. 20% its maximum gradient. It takes you up to only 292 metres, but what a way to go with an elevation of 161 metres. And Sorensen wants to see it first. He's not the world's best climber. In Milan-San Remo, he was in the lead with Claudio Chiappucci this year, and he found the Poggio climb was one too many, which comes just before the end. He was dropped by Claudio Chiappucci, who went on to win at the bottom of the hill. So Sorensen doing the next best thing today, that's getting out in front. If he does lose ground, at least he'll be still with the leaders when they go over the top. That's the theory. Now, as you go under the auto route here, you make a sharp right, and that's where the climb really starts. And there's the cars we'd heard about, and they certainly have stopped on the auto route to look down at the race. And there's the right turn for Sorensen when he comes under the bridge. Quite a good lead he's got too, isn't it, over that chase group. It's a good start to the climb for him. So that leaves 9 riders in that chase group. Sorensen here, now on the steep section of the climb. And the crowd, we understand, enormous on the climb. Check on progress by Rolf, 21 seconds. A very, very good lead at this point. The gradient not too bad here, but it won't ease up now for a couple of kilometres. In fact, it'll get steeper very shortly as he gets round the corner. This is back with the chase group. Inaki Gaston sitting at the back along with last year's winner, Eric van Lancker. Johan Bruneel, Lachrette in the yellow, Raul Alcala. And there is Argentin and Gordy Kikilian. They're both near the front and setting the rhythm along with Stephen Roach. Far side, Miguel Indurain. What a select group this is. Some of the world's great names, some of the riders we hope to see in action right at the front in this year's Tour de France. One name missing, of course, that of Greg LeMond. He really does seem to struggle to find the early season form that might finally win him the Classic, which he's never done. Until he does, of course, you can never compare his performances with that of Eddy Merckx. Well, this climb is so narrow that there's no cars allowed to be brought up it by the public. So these people here have had to walk right down from the village where we saw Sorensen coming over those cobblestones. It's a fair old walk. Some idea too of the height now, because way in the distance you can see the viaduct I was telling you about, which runs over the back of Remouchon, and that group riding very, very compactly indeed. And there's the crowd. Sorensen now getting up towards the top of the climb. It levels out a little bit. He's on the steep section there, but it levels out a little bit, then kicks again before he'll finally go under the finish banner at the top of the climb. That's the finish of the climb, by the way, not a race. There's the indication on the right of our screen, a 20% gradient, or if you're English like I am, that makes it a climb of 1 in 5. And this is Argentin and Kikilian now. It's interesting to see that Argentin himself is setting the pace in pursuit of his own teammate. Now, I suspect this was the plan for Sorensen to go away and Argentin to use his strength to counter the move. And it looks as though Kikilian is going with him. And this is a superb piece of riding by Claude Kikilian, because this is the one climb where you've got to start reducing the size of this breakaway. Kikilian is not the world's greatest sprint finisher, and he'll want to shed quite a few of these riders if he can. And this is a powerful piece of riding by Claude Kikilian. Sorensen still clear by about 20 seconds. Kikilian towing along now. The one man he doesn't want, of course, Moreno Argentin. And this is going to put both Ariostia riders up front. And along with Claude Kikilian, somebody else is trying to get across the gap there as well. Champion of Belgium really rising to the occasion today. He's saying his farewell to the Ardennes in the best possible manner. And this is further up. This is Rolf Sorensen in the lead. Still wondering why they haven't caught him yet. He's just kept the tempo going. Indurain has joined the other two. So this has split the breakaway now, completely in fact. 4 of the riders have gone forward. We've got 3 of them here. Sorensen is up ahead. This is the end of the steep part of the climb. We go round this bend and then there's a chance to settle in a little bit. Snip it up to a little higher gear. There we are, confirmation of the group chasing, Kikilian, Argentin, Indurain. And a look down the climb. There are the 4 chasers. So there are 2, there they are 2. There's 2 riders dropped off from the back of the remaining 6. Stephen Roach is in that chase group, so too is Eric van Lancker, I saw. And the crowd appreciating the good, honest effort here by the 3 leaders. Just ahead there, you can see Rolf Sorensen. So they're going to catch him exactly where I would have thought he would have planned to have been caught, right on the top of the climb with the effort over. A chance to recover, because we're off to a sharp right turn down some narrow roads, very narrow roads in fact, and a short descent before we climb the Côte d'Ornay. Plenty of time to get a few deep breaths in. It's interesting to see now that these 4 riders have got clear. Stephen Roach will be kicking himself at missing this. There's Sorensen, and they're coming right up alongside him. He won't be too unhappy. I don't think Rolf attacked at that point to think of winning the race. I think he attacked because he wanted to make sure he could climb over the top of the La Redoute, at least with the leaders, and that's exactly what's happened. Look, he's under the top of the banner there, which is at the top of the hill. He's now rejoined by 3 more of the breakaway. Indurain is the first to him, followed by Claudy, and then Moreno. And there we are, the flags of the nations: Denmark, Italy, Belgium, and Spain. A big look down the road and see what's happened. They've opened a reasonable gap, but it's not over yet by any manner of means. That's about 10-12 seconds. I wouldn't think it's much more than that. Well, I can see Stephen Roach and I can see Eric Van Lancker down there. Oh dear me, the motorbike rather spoiling the chase here. He's getting far too close. It's always a problem. And this is the narrow stretch of road I was telling you about. Just 27 kilometres now to go. Rouvy is where we are. Really, there's no such place of note. There's just these couple of farmsteads, and then we're out again back in the country, which is where the leaders are at the moment. And they're straight back into the stride here, and Sorensen is looking very, very strong today. This has been one of his finest rides, and he's pulled off 1 or 2 in the last 12 months racing. Argentine, 2 climbs still to come, look, and 2 super climbs. Well, the Côte de Herrera is not a great climb. It's a main road climb, but time is running out for Coquillon. He really will need to be away before the finish, I feel. Otherwise, the advantage is bound to swing across to Argentine, or even Sorensen if he gets his chance. And let's not forget Indurain. I think he'll have to attack too. It was his teammate last year who attacked on the Côte des Forges, Pedro Delgado. He got away too, but they brought him back before the finish. There's Rolf. Started off as a pro when he was only 20 years of age, Rolf Sorensen. He finished 9th in Milan-San Remo in 1986, but he never won a race at all that year. Stephen Roach, Marina Laggeretta here, so this is the chase group now. Laggeretta, Roach, Van Lancker. And look, they're nearly on. They're very, very close indeed now. And Roach is driving the train here. There could be a regroupment here of at least 4 of them. Alcala is the other one. And so that means that Brunel and the Naki Gaston have been shed on the climb of La Redoute, and as far as we know are out of the hunt now. It's a very sharp right-hand bend, this one. Well, they made it, and then they'll run out onto the main road. For a moment or 2, they'll have a good road with a strong descent down to the start of the climb of the Côte de Herrera. So Alcala showing us he's got some good form, so too Stephen Roach. Van Lancker putting up a determined defence of his championship, which he won in the A's last year. We're back up with the leaders now, and they seem very cool indeed. This is Argentine taking the last bite of the day and washing it down with a drink before the finish. 25 kilometres to go. Claudy Coquillon now set to leave the Ardennes on a high note. Well, this has been a very, very good race, Liège-Bastogne-Liège. You can't fool the hills, and you've got to have the strength if you want to take part at the front of the race. There's the chase group, and there's the official gap of 15 seconds. So close. They're obviously both riding in 2 groups of 4 at virtually the same speed. Roach is doing a lot of work down there, so too is Van Lancker. And if only they could just close that gap Sprimont is where we are. 24 kilometres from the finish. Miguel Indurain here sitting at the back. Now I wonder what he'll try Indurain, because he's been the quiet man of this break. He's the last one to get across to it. He also is not a fine finisher, so he'll need to break clear, and time is running out. Looks like the last assault will have to come on the Côte des Forges. Stanocker will be watching over them in what is a magnificent memorial to the great Belgian cyclist of the 50s. And 1.3 kilometres before the next climb. Indurain was supposedly to be the man of the early season until he took ill. Pedro Delgado, team leader, wanting a quiet start to the season. Hopefully so he can have a more serious crack at the Tour de France. Of course, he always upsets the Spanish people when he doesn't ride his native Tour of Spain, which he's not going to do this year. There's the next climb, takes us up to 280 metres. It's a main road climb, we're on it now. Very, very wide road. And it is perfectly straight, so you can always see the top. And look at this, Coquillon setting the pace, keeping that rhythm going. He's been a marvellous mountain climber over the years. When he came to the Tour de France, for a while he was rivaling the other climber from the Belgian countryside, Lucien Van Impe, 6 times winner of the King of the Mountains in the Tour de France. And Crick looking down, he must have seen that chase coming up surely on this long straight climb. But they're just keeping the tempo going. The attitude seems to be the others can catch us if they can. Argentine setting the pace again, so and Crick is going to launch an attack. He's gone late on the climb, but Sorensen and Argentine are both straight onto him. Well, Crick has kicked hard there, but Argentine has come rather arrogantly up alongside him again. His face hasn't even altered in expression. Now, that's the sort of thing that Eddie Merckx would have done, I have to say. He would have just come up on his rivals like that and said, "Are you serious?" And that's the way Argentine has countered that move. And Crick keeping the rhythm on, but he has been countered by Argentine and the other two. Sorensen was watching very alertly as well, because he went almost at the same time as Crick did. And so they resume the rhythm of working it out together once more. Sorensen following now the wheel of his team captain. Sooner or later they're going to have to make a decision here to see which one might be thinking of the victory, because there isn't much time left. I think Miguel Indurain will be feeling very pleased with his performance today too. This is back in the chase group. Raul Alcala doesn't seem to have done too much work in this group since he came across, because each time we rejoin the group, Raul is sitting at the back there. So too Lajaretta. These two at the front seem to be doing most of the work. Manke and Stephen. It's 13 seconds. It's been an awful lot of work just to nip off 2 seconds, hasn't it? Lajaretta going through now also. It's still possible because they're over the top of the Ornay. We have a little bit of a drop, then we swing right and a steady little drag, and then we'll start the last climb, which is the Côte des Forges. It is not a nice climb. It is another main road climb, by the way, but the nice thing is the riders know it's the last one of the 10. It's 2.1 kilometres long, by the way, and it takes us up to the 253 kilometres point, which will mean once at the top, 14 kilometres remain, and there's the gap. You can see them, and they can't reach them. Well, it's been a long time since we've seen a good hare and hounds pursuit like this. 3.3 kilometres to the Forge. And still Coquillon will not give up here. He's trying desperately now, and he must be having to think exactly how he's going to outmaneuver this lot. 15 seconds. They've lost the 2 seconds they gained. 1 minute 38 back to the Motte Anderson group. So they're out of it now, I'm afraid. That's been a good chase too, because they've never conceded to this breakaway at all. The pressure's quite clearly stayed on. I don't know how many's left back in that group, but I would think there must be a lot of riders now shed out of it. There's the sharp right-hand turn. This will take the riders on Little Link Road across to the parallel main road, which will carry the race up the Côte des Forges. The Côte des Forges, by the way, is a very early climb in the Flèche Wallonne. It comes after just a few kilometres, and therefore it doesn't really feature in that race at all. But in this race, it's the very last climb, and it always features. Stephen Roche determined to try and finish this off. He's doing a lot of work in this breakaway. 19 kilometres to go to the finish now. Dolenbreux is the town we're passing through, or the housing area at least. There's Van Lancker, who seems willing to, and Lacharette is working much better now as well. These are the 4 leaders. Each one of them are willing to keep up the pace. There's nobody actually shirking his duty here in this breakaway. It's quite clearly the 4 strong men have established at the front. It's a question of whether they can hold off that determined effort from Roche and co. The 77th time that Liège-Bastogne-Liège has been held, and the weather at least is staying quite kind towards the finish for us. 16 seconds. It looks as though we may have now witnessed the cracking of that Roche group. They came very close, so close they must have felt they could reach out, because 13 seconds on a climb like Ornay was not far at all. But now it's dropped back to 16 seconds, and they're on the flat roads. They're also out of sight here for a while, and that makes it even harder. The Côte des Forges will give us all of the answers, because if this group is still clear by 15 seconds at the top of the Forge, then I'm sure it will fight out the finish. Well, Moreno Argentin has all too often showed us the great sprint finish he has. He knows if these 4 come down together, it must be swinging in his favour. He's the hot favourite. That's where we are now, heading up towards the final climb of this year's Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Climb number 10. And the PDM team manager, Jan Gispers, up alongside Raul Alcala. And I wonder if he said to Raul, look, just make a big effort and get across to that gap. You've nothing to lose. There's been no shortage of firepower there from Stephen Roche. And you saw that gap open. Raul just let Roche go in. And now Walter Plankert having a word too with Eric Van Lancker. We're on the Forge now for the leaders, and there's a lovely crowd here enjoying the climb. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll see the actual monument of Stanocles because of the crowd. Takes us up to a height of 301 metres. A big crowd here. They've all come out to see the kill, I suspect. But it's a pity that we won't see the memorial to Stan Ockers because of the crowd, but they're over. The memorial is over on the far right by the finishing line. But this is the last chance now for Coquillon. He's setting the pace too, but he must know that setting the pace is going to be all that Argentin wants. He'll sit around there behind him. In fact, he's riding alongside him as if to discourage any thought of attack. Indurain also riding close too, and the weak link appearing to be Sorensen, but having no problems sitting there at the back of the 4. But Indurain pedalling a visibly lower gear than the other 2. Well, This is one of the sharp bends here as they start the climb up towards the summit now. It's about 1 kilometre from the top here. So no sign of an attack coming. So it looks as though Quintilian has felt obliged to allow this race to come down to a sprint finish. His big attack coming on the Côte de la Redoute, and he failed there. Now there is the chase group. It's a long way back now actually, because this is quite a steady drag, and I would say around 18 seconds that gap. 4 of them still together, and Indurain dictating the pace now. Sorensen looking good once more. This has been one of Ralph's best rides, I would say. Rolf Sorensen's best ride I've seen. He's riding with such great confidence after that wonderful finish to the season last year. And just look at this too, he's even causing a little bit of pain up here. So Sorensen stretching, and Quintilian marks him very, very quickly indeed. Taps out the rhythm alongside him. And the face on Argentin really looks as though he could play a game of poker. And another big crowd. Well, it wasn't possible for this crowd to transfer from La Redoute. That so often happens in Paris-Roubaix, where the crowd see the race go by and race across little tracks to find another section where the race is. But you can't do that so easily here at this stage of the race. So this has been an excellent day for the public watching the race. It's a tremendous atmosphere in Belgium, cycle racing as popular as ever, although the crowd always bemoaning the fact that they can't find a replacement for Eddy Merckx. There was a period of some 8 or 9 years when Eddy Merckx was winning everything that they really did enjoy following the sport. And these 4 riders almost at the top now. The gap, if anything, has slightly widened behind. So we're looking now at the 4 riders who are going to fight out the finish of the 77th Liège-Bastogne-Liège. And Rolf Sorensen, the World Cup leader, is in a tremendous position now to go towards the Amstel Gold Race with a big lead in this competition. And after the Amstel Gold Race, you then go into the big tours, which of course aren't part of the World Cup, and then the World Cup is resumed with the Wincanton Classic in England. Joe Quintilian continues to look over his shoulder. A sign of a man who now feels he's going to have to take on these riders in the sprint, and let's hope he feels inspired. He's got all the reason to do well. The last time he'll come over the Côte des Forges in anger. Rouvy Quintilian retiring at the end of this year after 13 years as a professional. He'll be missed in the big peloton, just like Sean Kelly will, his mate, when he retires shortly. Over the top of the Côte des Forges, and look to me there as though Rolf Sorensen was feeling quite pleased about that. Now, what are the 2 Ariostia boys going to do? This is the second group here. Van Lancker still riding well, and Lacheretta, Raoul and Stephen Roche. 14 kilometres, Beaufay for the chase, which is also on the top of the Côte now. Well, Van Lancker must feel a little bit frustrated. He hasn't actually been able to have a shot at winning this race again. He was right in the lead group. He paid the price on the climb of the La Redoute. These riders just couldn't raise their effort to the sprinting powers that those other 2 went up at it. And didn't they go up it too, Argentin and Quintilian? But they recovered and then just couldn't quite find the extra energy needed to close down the gap. The final drink for Quintilian, the champion of Belgium, who's flown the flag today extremely well. There's nowhere left on this course now for Crick to attack. He's going to have to go down to the finish because Argentin will mark him for sure. And there must be some concern about Miguel Indurain. The riders in this breakaway will have been constantly trying to test one another, so I presume that each rider knows the strength of the other at this point in the race. The question is just what has Miguel Indurain got? He put 2 races down on his programme this year that he wanted to ride well in, Milan-San Remo and the Liège-Bastogne-Liège. He couldn't ride well in Milan-San Remo, he wasn't feeling at all well, but now he's come to Liège-Bastogne-Liège here, and he's put in a great ride. He's read all of the moves correctly. This breakaway forming, don't forget, a long time ago now, back on the Haute Levée. And of the original 10, we're down to just 4. And somebody's gone from the group, and I think it's Raul Alcala. Well, Raul has sat at the back, he's not been doing much work, and now he's trying to cross the gap on his own. But it doesn't quite look as though he's firing too well, and in fact it's Stephen Roach who's bringing him back. Now, if only Raul had put some effort into the chase, you know, I have a feeling these 4 would have come back to the 4 out in front, because they were holding them for so long. But it's all too late now. Alcala's back in that chase group of 4. And we're heading on down towards the finish in Liège, the sharp right turn at the bottom of this road, and then we're heading towards the quay and the finish line. Coquillon is going to have to sharpen his sprint now and take on these 3. Indurain, he might well try and attack before the finish, Miguel, because I don't think he'll have any confidence at all in the sprint. I'm not too sure where he can attack now, because we've only got this flat run into the finish. The finish is actually about 200 metres from where we actually started this morning. We've gone completely around the Ardennes. 23 seconds and 2 minutes, look, over 2 minutes now back to Phil Anderson's group. The Roach group of 23 seconds. They won't be coming back today. The next time they'll see these 3 will be when they look up to the finishing podium. It's only a question of which one will be standing on it. And I can tell you that the whole of Belgium, watching these television pictures, are just standing on the edge of their seats here. They just want, they're willing for Coquillon now to win this race. But whichever way it goes, these last couple of races he's had in the Ardennes have been brilliant for him. He rode excellent, so well in the Flèche Wallonne, but he met a man there that was simply too good, Moreno Argentin. He broke away 70 kilometres from the finish. He fell off just round one of the corners on a very wet surface going downhill. And he must have only been leading at the time he fell by about 20 seconds, but he was up so quickly they never even realised he'd fallen off. And he went away again, and of course he won. Now Coquillon will be thinking of that, wondering just what he can do to beat Argentine at the finish today. Twice the Italian champion, by the way, and of course the world champion back in 1986, as I said earlier. He rode the Tour de France last year, but after winning the stage, he also crashed out. And that ruined, really, his chance of the World Cup, which was won by his team, well, by his countryman anyway, Gianni Bunny. Everybody now is watching one another at the same time as trying to keep the pace respectable, because they don't want that Roach group to come back. And certainly Crick will remember now the last time he was involved in a chase in a leading group was with Stephen Roach in Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and it was Argentin who came back because they started talking to each other about who was going to do the work to the finish. And as a result, of course, Argentin came and went and won the race. And this race still being denied Claude Coquillon. He finished second in 1986, 1984-5 he finished second. And he's also finished third, but he's never won it. The road shortly now will end in the countryside and will be into the outskirts of Liège. So we're almost at the finish, approaching now the 10-kilometre point. All 10 coats, little hills around the Ardennes are now behind the race for another year. And it's been a good race too. It's quite a long descent this. It calls for a little bit of skill because you can get up to speeds of 90 kilometres an hour down this stretch of road. It's a good, wide, very smooth surface descent. You can turn the heavy gears, and once you're off this hill, you're going to be into the finish. They are still pedaling along at around 45, 50 kilometres an hour or more. Sorensen looking very well. In fact, he's sort of saying to Coquillon, come on through, 7 kilometres to go. Finished 8th in the World Championship, Sorensen, back in 1987. The same year he finished 2nd in his own national tour, the Tour of Denmark. But his best win as a new professional really was Tirreno Adriatico, this race in Italy in the early part of the spring in March, and he's done that in 1987. He's turning out to be quite a rider for the classics because his first crack at Liège-Bastogne-Liège he finished 8th, and he was 4th in the Tour of Flanders. And he won the first big classic came his way when he won Paris Tours at the end of last season. A big sprint finish. Phil Anderson was involved in that sprint finish. But this year he's continued the form. 2nd Milan-San Remo, 3rd in the Tour of Flanders. Miguel Indurain sitting at the back here. He won his World Cup race last year too. The San Sebastian Classic, which is a very nice race in northern Spain on a big circuit. Terrifically hot weather then, and it was at that time too. I seem to recall Indurain was away with Marino Lajarreta. He got rid of Lajarreta, and right now he's done the same again, hasn't he? Because Lajarreta's in that chase group behind. Just 5 kilometres left to go now of the 264. There's no doubt now that the elastic has snapped in that chase group. We're not seeing too much of them. Ever since Raul Alcala put in that spurt to break clear, has gone back into the group.